I want to use either my signal processing library, def transform data, mumble, hard math, return result. Okay? Got a lot of that. And I've got my main program here, which says import signal, mumble, stuff equals signal.transform of raw data. And then I do other things. Okay. If it wasn't Friday afternoon, I would come up with a more detailed example. But I hope you get the idea. I've got a program. It's got a library. As a matter of fact, it's also importing GUI, and it is importing file read utilities, and it is importing sanity checks because, okay. So there's a lot of stuff in there. When it comes time to test this, I've got a lot of moving parts, and I want to test it by replacing all but one of those moving parts with dummy versions that do nothing or do something very simple so that I can focus my testing on the one piece. Okay? This is the idea of test the components in isolation and then assemble them. All right, I've got this, and I want to go back. Somebody wrote this before I got here. And I need to retrofit some sanity tests and some unit tests on top of this. So, okay, it sort of makes sense to do this and go into dummy signal.py and define transform of data to be skip the hard math on Fridays, return 0.0, 0.0, 0.0. Right. So let me switch back to my main program. And what I want to do is say import dummy signal. And then here say dummy signal.transform of raw data. Right? What I'm doing is instead of doing the real transform and I've got a whole bunch of other stuff going on and a whole bunch of other stuff going on, I'm saying, look, I'm just going to pretend that the result of doing a transform is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And see if everything else still works. Rather than trying to figure out a way to fake a data file that will get through the file reader, that will do this, that will do that, that will do that, and then I transform it, and then I feed it into here. I'm just replacing that function with one that always copies its input to its output, or always divides by 2, or it does something. But it's something really simple so that I can predict what the output should be, and I can start to make some tests. Well, look what I've done. I've now edited my program, and I've said dummy signal and dummy signal. Okay. And now, once I'm done with that and I want to put it back, I have to go through and edit it again. And then, crap, next Tuesday I've got to test again. So I go through and I edit and put it back this way, and then I remember to edit it back to just be plain old signal instead of dummy signal, and going back and forth. As soon as you find yourself repeating things, find a way to automate it. Okay? I said, any piece of code that's repeated in 2 or more places will eventually be wrong in 1. Any action you repeat 2 or more times, you will eventually get wrong. If you find yourself doing something over and over again, the computer is crying out to help you. Please, 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 let me do this for you. You are repeating yourself. Human beings should not repeat themselves any more than dinner should. Right? I just want this. Let me help you. So, let's do this. Okay. Import dummy signal as my signal. And then call mySignal.transform. Right. I can change a library's name as I import it. I can say, I want that, but I'm going to call it this. Normally, you use this, as we saw with Ben, if you've got a library which is something like import very long library name indeed, it's kind of annoying to then say very long library name indeed.do. Right? So it's very common to say import that as VLINI. Right? Create a shortcut for the name. Makes sense? Okay. And then down here, of course, I would say VLNI.do. Okay. That means my libraries can have good, sensible, meaningful names, but I'm not inflicting those very long names on the people who are using them. They can decide in context that this is only 20 lines. You'll be able to remember Vlini. Right? Okay. Now watch what I do. Get rid of those. Okay. I am now importing dummy signal as my signal, and I'm calling my signal.transform. Right? So that calls dummy signal.transform because I'm just using my signal as a nickname for that library. Everybody good? If I want to switch back to using the real library, I make one change in one place. And I'm done. Now I'm importing a different library, but it's got the same nickname. It has a function with the same name that takes the same parameters. So now when I run my program, one change in one place has switched back and forth between the real library and the testing library. Okay, that's cool. Right? That's one of the signs of good design. One change in one place to have a desired effect. That's what you're striving for. I don't have to hunt through and find all of the places where I was saying dummy signal.transform and replace them with real signal.transform. I make the change once as I'm importing, and it only works properly if that library and dummy signal have the same functions that take the same parameters and return the same kinds of results. Because if the transform function from signal takes 3 parameters, but the transform function from dummy signal only takes 1, clearly one or the other of these calls is going to blow up. Either I'm passing 3 or I'm passing 1, and it'll work for one, but it won't work for the other. This is a good practice because it forces me to define what's the interface for this library, because now I've got 2 implementations of it, the real one and the dummy one. Right? So I've had to decide what is it that my real signal processing library is giving the world, because those are the only things that I will put in the dummy version. If there are functions in the real signal processing library that I don't want you to call, or I think are just internal helpers, I don't make dummy copies of them in dummy signal. Why would I? Right? So the functions that are coming out of that dummy signal library are signaling to you, forgive the overload of the word, here's the stuff that I think is part of my API. It's forcing me to think about how do you plug into this. Let's make it even better. Suppose that I do this. Testing equals false. I'll say testing equals true. Right? If testing, import dummy signal as my signal, else import signal as my signal. Okay? Import in Python is a command like any other. It's done dynamically. So here, if testing is true, I will import that library and give it that nickname. If testing is false, I will import a different library and give it that nickname. This trick does not work in Java. Okay? In Java, when I'm connecting to a library, I decide when I compile my code which library I'm going to connect to. I've made the decision before the program runs. Upside, the compiler can optimize things. It can go and look and say, right, if you're going to call that, then I can do this and this and this to make it go faster. Okay? In Python, I don't tell you what we're loading until we actually get to that statement. So there's less opportunity to make it go fast, but it's more convenient for the programmer. Why? Now if testing is switched on, I'm loading the dummy versions of those 2 libraries. And if testing is switched off, I'm getting the real versions. If I want to switch back and forth, I make one change in one place. Otherwise, I'd have to go through and edit several import lines to switch from the testing versions of the libraries to the real versions of the libraries. Here, I've got it down to one change in one place.